Welcome back to the Mold Safe Build channel. I'm Dr. Karen Curitin, and I'm here to share with you everything that's going on in my journey to build a mold safe home. So, on this episode of the channel, I want to talk about what it's been like to live full-time RV life while working on building our home. And I'll just start by saying that it has been a pretty wild ride for us since we started RV life. So I'm going to share some of the stories from what that's been like for us and pros, cons, things we wish we had known before we went into it, and other anecdotes like that. So hopefully, if you are considering doing mold avoidance in an RV, this just gives you a little bit of a sense of what it might be like from our perspective, our experience, and the way we've chosen to do it. And if that is in the process of building a home, then, great. But people are also doing mold avoidance in an RV just to get away from their toxic, moldy home. And so this is also an option for you if you just need a temporary, safe shelter. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the decisions we made in terms of the RV that we chose to live in so we could actually avoid mold. Because it turns out, a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of RVs, including brand new RVs, are actually very mold toxic. Many of the ones today are built just as cheaply as homes are built. They're built with OSB and cardboard and all kinds of other organic materials that mold loves to eat because when you move them, shaking them like crazy, it's not uncommon for things that were previously very secure to not be secure and for leaks to develop and stuff like that. And if you have that in a situation where there's a lot of organic material, for the mold to eat, it's going to be a bigger problem. So, just moving into any old RV to try to escape your moldy home is not necessarily going to be a safer situation. And I've had prior clients who have done that without consulting me, and they ended up really regretting it. And having to move again, having to sell the RV and have another transition because they didn't realize that RVs were built just as poorly as a lot of homes are today, and they can have their own issues with mold. So, I'll start off by saying that what we decided to do is we sold our home, and we decided to do this because it was good timing in terms of the market. We also chose to do it because at the time that we sold it, the mortgage had really just become too expensive for us after I got sick from mold again in that home. I wasn't able to work very well and very much, and so my income dramatically dropped, and the mortgage just became too much for my husband's income alone. And I'm sure many of you know what that's like and have been there. Um, and so we knew after the last really big mold event in that house that we were over it and we wanted to build a more resilient, mold resistant home for ourselves. And so we started thinking through, well, what is the easiest way for us to do that? We knew at the time that we weren't going to want to stay where we were living, where we owned our last home, because land there was too expensive. We had learned that we really wanted to be able to avoid air conditioning in our mold safe home build because several of the worst sources for my own exposures have been air conditioners of different styles. And actually, the very last event that I had, which was the worst exposure, that was caused exclusively by an air conditioner. And when I tested myself, I was showing current active exposure to 14 out of 14 tested mycotoxins, including the worst ones. So, yeah, it was pretty bad and pretty mind-boggling that that many types of mold could be growing in the air conditioner and causing such a horrific issue with toxicity. But that was such a bad exposure that I actually was having anaphylactic reactions at the time when we realized there was another mold event going on. And so we went into super rapid remediation. It was brutal, and the remediation was successful, but we knew we never wanted to go through that again. We were just like, if we can avoid it, why would we not? If we can have more stability in our lives, of my health, of our enjoyment of life, of our financial situation by avoiding another big catastrophic mold exposure, why would we not do that? Other than, it's a lot of work, right? Building a home is a big deal. It's a big undertaking. And we're learning more and more about that every day as we go through the process. But this is about what we chose to do in the interim. So we sold our house and we decided to buy two small ATC trailers. ATC is the brand. And that particular brand in this particular model, and I think this is the case for most of their models, but it's always good to make sure, has no wood or paper, cardboard, none of those kinds of organic materials that mold loves to eat in the construction of the build. So they're aluminum framed, aluminum walls and roof and all that kind of stuff. They use some vinyl products on the interior. They use like resin counters and metal cabinets and all this kind of stuff. So from what we read from many other people who have done mold avoidance through RVs, ATCs seem to be one of the brands that has the best track record for people being able to actually heal and be successful at not getting sick again from mold, even if there is a water event. Now, that's not a guarantee. Mold can grow on all kinds of building materials when dust is present, which dust kind of gets everywhere. But I will say that it was pretty cool when we went to see our trailers where they were being produced. We actually had both trailers custom produced for us. They made a couple small modifications. And so my husband went to the factory where they were being made, and they were all being made completely indoors in this beautiful, new, pristine warehouse type building. And he said it was incredibly impressive. It was very clean in there. They had everything beautifully systematized. He saw many units at different stages of production, and the production was really impressive. They're produced in the US, in Indiana, inside, all the way from start to finish. And they even have this like water testing space, so it's basically like a giant car wash sort of thing. It simulates really, really heavy rain and sprays the trailer from all angles with large amounts of water. And they do that to each trailer after it's done being produced. And people sit inside and watch for leaks from any possible location. And that was really impressive to me that they go to the hassle of doing that and gave me a lot more confidence that what I was getting was a well sealed RV. Because obviously, you want that if you're doing it for mold avoidance. You don't really want to have any water issues. So we decided to get ATCs. There are other brands that people have had good success with for mold avoidance, especially casitas have been really popular. And now there's a brand called Live Trailers that's relatively new that also is wood, cardboard, and paper free in their construction, I believe. But my understanding is that they use more plastics rather than metals in their construction. So, anyways, we decided to go with ATCs. We decided to go with two of them because when we toured the larger ATC trailers, they had no soundproofing whatsoever. So, the larger ones have a separated bedroom and then a main area. I think now they even have ones where the main area can be separated into two rooms with a temporary wall situation. But yeah, there was no soundproofing whatsoever. So I don't know about you guys, but my husband and I have very different sleeping schedules. I am a legit long sleeper, which means that I need like 9 to 10 hours to feel optimal, to feel like I've gotten enough sleep. And my husband needs like 5 or 6. And so he usually gets up at like 4 in the morning, maybe 5. He starts his day, right? He's making coffee, he's taking the dogs outside, he's starting to work, etc. Sometimes that involves being on the phone with people at his work. And I just knew that there's no way I was going to be able to get enough sleep with us having such opposite sleep schedules in a single trailer that had paper thin doors essentially separating the rooms. We both also work remotely and we both take meetings. I take obviously private meetings with clients where their privacy is critical. And so I needed the ability to be able to take these calls and not have interference of him hearing them or his voice being audible to my clients and vice versa. My husband also needed that for his work. So for us, we thought it made sense to have two trailers. Have there been some big downsides to that? Absolutely. Yes, it has been a huge pain in other ways, but the upside is I have actually been able to get enough sleep. I've actually slept better in trailer life for the most part than I ever did before in our home, which is kind of interesting. And so that was the choice that we made. And basically, what we decided to do is we decided we would follow the West. In the hot months in the summer, we would stay at high elevation, high desert locations where there wasn't going to be tons and tons of rain. It wouldn't be super humid, et cetera, because humidity's a big deal in RVs, tends to be a big problem if outdoor humidity is high, especially. And then we would go south as the weather changed and stay in deserts in the south later in the year. And that has worked well for us. We have been doing this temporary RV life now for a little over 6 months. And the goal of this, the reason we chose to do this is because, we hoped it would save us a little bit of money over paying our mortgage. That didn't end up happening because we have two RVs, but if you only had one, that would probably be true for you, depending on what kind of mortgage or rent you had before starting. Um, we also really wanted to avoid me having another potential exposure, and that seemed far more likely to happen in our home than it did in one of these RVs, which is built with inorganic materials and has ample fresh air every day and all these other things. So that was another big goal. The third big goal is we needed to find a new place to build. We knew we weren't going to stay where we were because the wildfires were really bad. We wanted to be able to have a place where we could open the windows reliably year round, where there was much less chance of long, long periods of wildfire smoke, which just wasn't the case where we were in Oregon. Wildfires had become really, really bad there. And actually, the summer where I had my worst mold exposure was a summer where we had to keep everything closed up for 3 whole months and run air conditioning nonstop with no fresh air exchange through windows because the wildfire smoke was so intense for 3 straight months. And so it really amplified the exposure that I was getting because no fresh air could get in. Even though we had air purifiers running the whole time, if you know anything about toxic mold exposure, that's never going to be enough if you have a major source for mycotoxins. For the most part, it has worked out really well. It has allowed my body to continue to heal. So I think it's been a great choice from that perspective. So, one of the things it did allow us to do, though, is find the new location we wanted to live. When you want to move, but you have no idea where you want to move to, you just kind of have an idea of this type of climate and the type of community, maybe the town size you'd like to be in, what kind of resources you would like to be there, but you've not been to a lot of places that are good candidates. RV life is a great way to be able to figure out what is going to work for you, what place you really like, where you really resonate with. If you were doing it with hotels and Airbnbs, unless you have an unlimited budget, it would be hard to spend enough time there, to have enough money to spend enough time in each location to say, yeah, this does feel like a good fit. I do think I could live here. Yes, all the resources that I want do exist here. Oh, there's hikes here, which is my favorite thing to do. I was looking for places where there was lots of outdoor activities and very readily available. We were looking for lots of different. We generally wanted high desert because that has been the type of climate where I have felt my best. And we wanted it to be high elevation so that summers weren't too hot and we could avoid air conditioning in our new super intensely insulated home. So it allowed us to do that. we were able to spend long chunks of time in several different locations that, on paper seemed like really good candidates for us. It just so happened that one of the locations we chose to go visit early on, we had a long-term space rental for our RVs um, in this location in northern New Mexico. And we ended up really not liking it there. We were like, no, this is not the place where we're going to build our house. This is not a good fit for us. So let's explore other locations in this high elevation area nearby and see if anything else resonates. So we decided to go for a weekend to a town in southern Colorado and see what we thought about it, see how we felt there. And we took one of the RVs to spend a weekend there. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. We really like this little small town. We want to check this out further. So at that point, we had a reservation for the next month somewhere else, but we moved it. We decided to move the reservation to this small town in southern Colorado that we really liked. We decided to stay there for 2 months so we could really check it out. So we could see what the grocery stores were like, see what kind of local farms and CSAs were going on, see what the hiking was like there, and see what land was like there, right? Because we were looking for a place that had affordable lots of land that would allow us to build on that land, stay in relatively close proximity to resources needed, like groceries, and also, yeah, be affordable enough that we could then add the cost of building the house to that and still stay in a mortgage range that was really comfortable for us. And after our experience with me getting sick twice from severe mold exposures since the time we got married, so well, let's see. Actually, in the 7 years since we have lived together, two really big mold exposures made me super sick. So we were just like, okay, considering that, I mean, God forbid that should happen in our mold resistant home that we build, but what if it does? We wanted to be able to afford our mortgage easily on one income, just in case. So that was what we were looking for. And we ended up finding this place that had all those things, checked all of those boxes for us. It was kind of serendipitous, but in those 2 months that we were there, we went and looked at a lot of different plots of land just that were for sale to see what was available, what we liked. And there happened to be one that was for sale that really checked a lot of the boxes of what we were looking for mold resistance. There are some considerations in terms of what kind of land you buy for that. I'll explain that in another video. Um, Cost wise, location, access to groceries, all that kind of stuff. And it also had two RV sites already on it with power, water, and sewer hookups. And we were like, this is so serendipitous. So we bought that plot of land there. We decided this is where we want to build. And I don't think that spending a week or even 2 weeks would have been enough for us to really get a sense of that place at a deep level to know we're going to be able to build community here, to have all the resources we need here, to feel at home here, to enjoy our lifestyle here. All of those things we were really assessing for the whole time we were there. So I really feel like RV life is fantastic if you don't know where you want to build and you need to be able to spend long chunks of time. I would ideally suggest a month at least in each location to really assess, would this be a place where I would want to build? Some of you might be considering building in places where you already own land, you already know what's going on there, which is great. But for us, we were really looking to change where we were for a variety of reasons. So I'm going to actually stop this video there, and then I'm going to come back and do one that is all about the pros and cons of RV life as we have lived it thus far. But that's just a little introduction to our experience with RV life, what it has really helped us to do in terms of the long-term goal of building a home. And I'll talk more about the challenges in the next video. So I hope that this was interesting to you, and I'll be back soon for the next part.